Hi, my name is Sage. I live in this 2006 Honda Element with my dog Kopek here. I requested on Instagram and Facebook and on YouTube for you guys to ask me some questions that you have regarding kind of this lifestyle of living in a car, living with a dog, and living in Central Oregon. I got a lot of really good, thoughtful questions, and so I'm excited to kind of go through the answers with you guys. I also just recorded a video that is frequently asked questions, so if the question that you have for me is not answered in this video, you may want to go check out that one, because that one has some of the more basic questions, like where do you go to the bathroom, where do you shower, that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go through this list of questions. I have put all of the questions down in the video description below, and I've put timestamps on all of them, so if there's a particular question in the description down there that you like, you can just click on the timestamp and I'll jump right to that spot in the video, and hopefully that makes it a little easier. But if not, you can just watch through the whole video and hear all the questions that I got and my answers to them. So let's get into it. My friend Ian Charbonnet in Santa Barbara asked, what's one thing you acquired specifically for car living that you absolutely needed versus one thing that you acquired for car living that you really didn't need after all? I thought that was a super good question. Thanks for asking it, Ian. One thing that I did acquire specifically for living in a car that I have found to be very helpful is my whole solar setup, my 160 watt energy solar panel, and my battery bank that I have just down here below the laptop. It's been incredibly useful, and it's not that I couldn't get by without power. I can power things up through my car, and I can go into coffee shops and that kind of stuff, but I think that it provides me just a little bit of peace of mind that if I'm out in the wilderness or in some remote part, I will have access to power at all times, so long as there is a sun. So that's been awesome for me. The thing that I purchased or got specifically for living in a car that I didn't actually need was a few weeks into the first time that I lived in my car, I made these sets of curtains that went all the way around the entire car, and it was an addition to kind of my Reflectix panels, and I spent like $90 getting all the fabric and like Velcro tape and stitching it all together and that kind of stuff, and like put Velcro along the walls like this, and I think I've used it maybe 3 or 4 times. I found that my shades that go on the windows, not the curtains but the shades, do a good enough job blacking it out. I think I was worried a lot more early on about people like peeking in or people being able to see light leaking out, but what I have does a pretty good job already. The next question is, how long do you think you will live comfortably in your car? This question was asked by Welcome to Wander here from Instagram. I think the timeline for living in my element is a little bit different than my timeline for living in a vehicle in general. I do kind of hope and plan to eventually upgrade the space to a little bit larger of a space. Kopek and I are happy and comfortable in here right now, but I do kind of foresee it being a little too tight long term for the two of us. So kind of saving and researching for other options. But that being said, I think vehicle living in general, I could be doing it for as long as 10 years. I don't really know. It's hard to say this early on, but for now I'm enjoying it. Unbreakable Taylor on Instagram asks, what is your food storage situation? If it's limited, do you plan to upgrade? Yeah, actually now my food storage situation is pretty limited. I actually, just this spot behind my laptop here, it's a cabinet that closes, and that's got all my food in it, and I just have dry food storage right now, and that's working out fine. I used to have a big roto-molded Arctic, like the Yeti style cooler, and I had previously built a different setup in here, and it just took up so much space that I kind of decided when I rebuilt the space that I was just going to do away with it and figure something else out. I couldn't like plan my entire space around this one cooler. So I just have dry food storage right now. I do want to upgrade. I'd eventually like to get a refrigerator that has a separate freezer, but that'll probably come along with when I upgrade my space altogether. Next question. Have you had any knocks on your window while living in your car? This was asked by Trip Rover on Instagram, trip.rover. The short answer is no. If you don't know, that's kind of a thing in the vehicle dwelling van life sort of community. They call it the knock, and that's when somebody like usually a cop thinks you're sleeping in there and they come knock on the window, and they call it the knock, and it's kind of a, you know, it's an unsettling situation having somebody knock on your vehicle. It'd be like getting a knock on your house in the middle of the night. But no, I have not had any knocks. I'm pretty good about, because I'm in that element, I'm pretty stealthy, and I'm pretty good about picking out spots where I'm not bothering anyone. Next question. What's your favorite part of living in a van? This question was asked by I am Tiana K from Instagram. I have kind of a few things that I really appreciate about living in a van. The first one is that I just don't really have space in my life to own or hold on to things that aren't bringing value into my life. So I've really had to kind of like stop and think about like all my possessions and whether or not they are still continuing to bring value to me. And I think it just kind of from a philosophical level, I really like that part of living in a vehicle. And then the other thing is that I like that I'm forced to be kind of out and about and on the town and doing things. It's not particularly comfortable to just hang out in here, especially as a vehicle this small. And so it forces me to like go do stuff. And a lot of times that's, you know, it's not like big things. It's like me going and getting coffee, but then I'm around people and I'm you know, reading or I'm researching on my computer. It just forces me to kind of not just sit back and be lazy. In my previous living situation in an Airstream trailer, I would get home from work and I would just lay in bed and be lazy. And it's a lot harder to do here in this element. So I really like that. Those are kind of the two things that I really like about living in a car. Question number 6 is asked by BrownGirl831 on Instagram. She asks, do you use a heater or heated blanket at all? What are some winter sleeping tips? I went over this a little bit in my frequently asked questions video too, but this was a little bit different. I don't use a heater or a heated blanket at all. The only heater that I do use is the one from the Honda Element. The Honda Element heater works awesome, and this is such a small space that it heats up everything really quickly. But besides that, I don't use any form of heater or heated blanket. I have a good sleeping bag. In fact, I have a couple sleeping bags. I just use one, but I've got like a 15-degree bag, a negative 25-degree bag, and then also like a summer spring bag that's rated for like, you know, 50 degrees or something like that. And that's basically all I do for keeping warm. Sorry, I'm getting a little too dark as the sun's going down. I'm gonna move a little bit closer. Next question is by Lil Morgan Eck from Instagram. She asks, was it harder to meet people or make friends while living in a car and in the outskirts of Bend? The short answer is no, it wasn't harder. Here in Bend, the National Forest is like 10 minutes outside of town, and a lot of times the first thing I'd do for the day would be to come back into town so I could use the restroom and shower and that kind of stuff. And I didn't meet many people out in the forest. I made a couple friends out there, but for the most part, all my meeting has been done in town here. But because the forest is so close, it hasn't been that hard. Next question. What kind of emergency plan do you have in case of a breakdown? This is asked by Neo Mystic on Instagram. Kind of my first line of defense is that I have AAA, and so if I do break down, at least I can get towed into a shop, that kind of stuff. And then I'm slowly sort of developing like a group of friends here that are offering their resources to me should I need it. Like I've got a few friends who have offered to let me stay the night there if it's too cold, or if I ever have to put my car in the shop or that kind of thing. I don't have like a real set emergency plan, so that might be a dissatisfying answer, but that's about it. Next question. This question is by Avi Castro. She asked me on YouTube. And her question was, what is your mattress situation? I custom designed this mattress and got custom cut foam pieces from a company called Foam Factory. The URL is foambymail.com. I've used them twice now and been pretty satisfied with the product, and it's working out pretty well for me. And they seem to be pretty nice people, so check them out. Next question is by Shelly Lennox on Facebook. She asks, are you staying at a campsite? I covered this a little bit earlier, but no. In fact, I've spent about a grand total of a year living in my Honda Element, and I have yet to pay for a place to sleep. It's kind of part of the reason for the lifestyle. If I'm paying, $20 a night for a place to park, it's kind of like paying rent, and at that point I might as well just rent an apartment or a studio or something like that. So I have never, not once, paid for a place to sleep. Next question is by RJ Ruppel on Facebook. He asks, how would you change your setup if you were on the move more often than you are now? What else would you have to consider if your trips and dwellings were more coast to coast or included international travel / living? Really good question. That's a really thoughtful question. The one thing that sort of comes to mind is since I got a new solar panel, it's a little bit bigger, and I cannot fit my cargo box and my solar panel on the roof at the same time. So I just have the solar panel up there now. If I were going to be traveling more full time, I think I would find a way to fit them both up there, just because I'd have a little bit of added storage and separated storage space, so that right now I have a storage unit in town and I can keep some stuff there. But if I'm going full time traveling, then it would be a little more difficult. And then I think the other kind of thing that I even now consider changing for my setup is I would like to have some sort of indoor cooking space. And I think when I do eventually upgrade the size of the vehicle, that'll kind of come with that. But even now, I would like to do that with the Element, figure out a way that I can cook inside, maybe get a fan that I can put on one of my side wing windows, and you know, I'm not going to do any elaborate meals or anything, but just at least be able to like heat up ramen or something when I don't want to get outside or don't want to pay for a full meal. Built by John on Instagram asks, how do you keep the car from getting stinky when you're living in there full time? It is kind of difficult, honestly. The biggest tip that I can recommend is just kind of keeping stinky things like laundry separate. I've got kind of an area down here that's tucked away, where all my dirty laundry goes into a bag. It's like a pretty good heavy duty bag, and just kind of gets tucked away, so it's not filling my general space. And like I'll you know, separate my shoes when I take them off, just to make sure that the smells stay a little like isolated. First thing in the morning, I usually, when I start driving, I'll roll down the windows just to kind of get all that stale air and the moisture from breathing and that kind of stuff circulated and out of the car as much as possible, and that seems to help quite a bit, just making sure that I do that every morning. And then I just have a pretty decent air freshener as well. Next question, Caleb Anthony Riley on Instagram asked, what do you miss most about living in a home? Very good question. I probably would say having my own shower. I don't love having to rush a shower at the gym. I do actually love a good long hot shower, and so that is one of them. The other one is probably just having a place where I can keep Kopek, where she has access to go outside at all times. She's pretty happy in here in general, but I just would like to have a little more space for her. We do enough activities though. My collection of video games on Instagram asks, scariest night in the element. I haven't really had any. There's one time that kind of comes to mind. I was in Arlington, Virginia. I was going to go to Washington, D.C. the next day, and there were just some dudes in this parking lot that were just kind of being shady, like catcalling women and that kind of stuff, and I just didn't really want to sleep in that parking lot overnight, so I ended up leaving. I didn't stay there. I went to a different parking lot, so that's the only one that really comes to mind. Next question, do you plan on traveling internationally in the element at some point? This was also asked by my collection of video games. Yeah, I would love to. It gets pretty complicated when you throw like a dog into the mix to travel internationally. It's not impossible, but it gets pretty complicated. So I don't know if it will happen in the element, but I do want it to. Next question by andres.guilan.sd on Instagram. He asks, favorite Thrice song? You may or may not know I'm a big Thrice fan. I think I'm actually, I'm wearing a Thrice t-shirt now even. I can't decide. There's too many that I love. But I guess to give you a more satisfying answer, one that has sort of stood the test of time for me that I've adored for many years now is The Wait, off of the album Beggars. So maybe I'll put that link to that in the description or something like that. Yeah, that is all my questions. So thanks to those of you who asked. If you have more questions, I could possibly do another video in the future if there are enough new ones. If you haven't already checked it out, I do have my frequently asked questions video that I recorded. It's going to look a lot like this because I was sitting in the exact same spot at the exact same time. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you soon.